Welcome to Sinkowitz, hosted by the fearless Linda Sinkowitz. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to Sinkowitz. My name is Linda Sinkowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. You're watching us on OBBM Network TV, and welcome to our 30th episode. Now, this week, my guest is Matt Braynard, and he is from Look Ahead America. We'll be talking to him very shortly. We are also going to be discussing Arizona, Iowa, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Ohio. And then we will be going to our election and voting terms segment, our trivia question. Then we're also going to be talking about some national information. And then we'll be going to our vote notes. So that's the lineup for today. So let's get right into it. And let's welcome Matt Braynard. Hi, Matt.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. Now, your organization is Look Ahead America.
Yes, ma'am. We got our
Okay.
start after the 2020 election. I founded the Voter Integrity Project, and that was meant to look at problems in 7 different states following the 2020 election. And what we found with our analysis is that there were problems in Arizona, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, where the number of ballots that should not have been counted because they were not legal ballots. They were cast by people who didn't have residency or had other violations that would prevent those ballots from being cast, surpassed the margin of victory. And usually that's a standard that calls for a redo an election in most states, as we've seen in places like New Jersey and elsewhere. But because the presidential election has certain constitutional deadlines, and there was, it seemed like everybody really wanted the election to go the way it appeared to go. We didn't get very much traction outside of working with President Trump's legal team. But we continued our work, doing a lot of election integrity investigations around the country, putting out a lot of reports, getting involved in lawsuits against Dominion. That battle has sort of come to a culmination now, where there's the Federal SAVE Act, which is meant to prevent non-citizens from voting. The problem is that bill can't be passed because it's blocked by a filibuster in the US Senate. What we've discovered is that thanks to some recent court rulings in Texas and Montana, states that have willing legislatures and governors can pass the SAVE Act at the state level. So right now we're focused on finding partners in states across the country to do training and to do education among the activist base on how to be better community organizers and how to use those skills to help pass better election integrity laws, basically a state level Save Our State, SAVE Act. And I'm actually in Arizona now, where we just did our first partnership with some local groups here, Vote Your Values and the Arizonans for Election Transparency. We trained a large group of activists, and we're going to be pushing forward with them to try to get these laws passed here in Arizona, specifically laws that would require proof of citizenship to register to vote, real ID, citizenship, proof of citizenship ID to cast a ballot, as well as getting rid of black box voting equipment where there's no accountability for what's happening inside the machine. The state pays hundreds of millions of dollars for this equipment, but isn't allowed to look at the software or even open up with a screwdriver, and they have vendor lock-in. So any kind of repair or updates or upgrades to the machine all have to be done by the original vendor. They can't be done by local firms creating local jobs. So those are our 3 areas of focus for the Save Our State program, and we're looking forward to working with more states to get training done and provide leadership and other kinds of support to get this done at the state level.
Yeah, and Arizona definitely has a lot of issues. Now, if I recall back in 2020, there was one of the 15 counties where one of the clerks was refusing to certify the election because she knew that the ballots and stuff were incorrect. But she was threatened with, being arrested or a lawsuit, or they forced, it was being arrested. They forced her to certify an election that she knew should not be certified.
Look, you're going to find a lot of anomalies and a lot of problems that went down with the 2020 election because there were a lot of folks that were very passionate about changing things, and because of that, they want to overlook the law and take advantage of loopholes in the law. And it was very clearly a rigged election, where you had outside money coming in from people like Mark Zuckerberg, where they would invest in areas that lean towards one party. Even though it's nonprofit money, they're not supposed to be partisan, but they go strictly in areas that supported Joe Biden and really reduce the threshold for voting, make it very easy, make investments that would make it easy to vote, but not do those anywhere else in the state. Like Georgia, they just focus in Atlanta and the urban
Mhm.
counties. Same thing in Pennsylvania. Focus solely on making it as easy to vote as possible. In Philadelphia, lower the threshold, and also lower the standards for election integrity, but not do that elsewhere. And then of course, you had other election rigging going on, where social media companies were blocking information from reaching voters. So there's no doubt that it was a severely rigged election, and we demonstrated that in those 3 states, enough ballots shouldn't have been counted from people who did not live in the state. They got their hands on an absentee ballot, sent it in. Many of them voted in 2 different states, and that happens in most elections. There's never been a perfect election, at least at the state level, where every vote is completely legitimate. But when the margins are so small, fraud can determine the outcome. And unfortunately, I believe that was the case in 2020. I think a lot of states have made some good strides to fix that, but we still have a long way to go on some fronts.
Oh, absolutely. And even with the states that are out there saying, our system now is perfect, nobody is perfect out there. I know Georgia's really been working on their stuff, but they still have a bunch of issues that haven't been settled from 2020 on things that went on in Fulton County.
Well, I mean,
For
and the federal government, I know that the new administration is making changes as quickly as possible, but some things have, require Congress's help. I mean, right now, you could have somebody who's never been to the United States, doesn't live in the United States, has no proof of U.S. citizenship. They could, let's say, be in Bolivia, right? They've never set foot here. They don't have an address here. They can register to vote in any state through the federal government's websites, and websites that have been set up by Democrat allied organizations, and then request an absentee ballot. We've witnessed it ourselves. And that is open to exploitation from people who are hostile to the U.S., but just like foreign countries, um, you know, uh, their intel service want to cause havoc in a close election in the United States. They can easily organize an effort to mass register and mass cast fake ballots, and that's a big loophole that needs to be closed. And you know maybe let's say I got married in another country, I had a kid, right, and the kid's never been in the US. Well, by law, it's a US citizen. By law, they're entitled to vote in the US. But at the very least, that process needs to require proof that that person really is a US citizen and is entitled to cast a ballot like that. But now there's no checks. So our voter rolls literally are filled with people who've registered this way because the left encourages people to do that overseas and makes it very easy. And that's a huge loophole that the federal government can close. And I think that now, thanks to these recent court rulings, the state governments can close as well.
Right. And it was a huge problem even in 2024. You had a number of the leftist organizations that were basically signing up people who didn't even live in, as you said, in the country. Oh, go ahead, register in North Carolina, register in New Jersey, and they'd never been there before. I think one
Hmm.
of the biggest things is the fact that we are one of the few, if only countries in the world that don't require an ID and to be a citizen of the country.
They
I mean,
require a
it's
check on that. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
There are a lot of things about this country that are quite unique in an unfavorable way, like birthright citizenship.
right.
It's extremely rare, and I believe it's not what the founders intended. It's not what, and hopefully we'll get a good ruling from the Supreme Court on that. But there are a lot of really bizarre things in the country that require fixing, even outside the scope of election integrity. For example, if you run a company, right, and you say, "Look, I only want to hire American citizens. I'm hiring," because you hear it. Everyone says,
Right.
"Buy American, hire American," right? It's illegal. It is illegal to explicitly hire U.S. citizens if you run a company. It's when the typical man on the street or woman on the street hears that, it just blows their minds. But that's just unfortunately the circumstances, and frankly, it's a defect in the electorate. So we need to make more people aware of this so that they can take action and hold elected officials accountable and vote accordingly. I mean, simple things like election integrity, hiring, migrant workers taking advantage of, and companies taking advantage of worker visa programs, all these kinds of things. If the public knew it, they would become enraged, but we need to get them to enrage and then take action, which is to vote and to engage in activism. So I encourage everybody to go to lookaheadamerica.org, sign up to volunteer with our organization. We do online training, we do in-person training, and we provide direction and leadership and other resources to help accomplish these things. But we can't do anything if the people watching don't get up and decide that they're going to make this a priority in their personal lives. At least
Right.
as much as say professional sports are a priority in people's lives. If we just had the level of activism that the NFL has in its fans, which doesn't mean anything, right? It's a stupid game. Like what? But people are intense and active, and they wear
Right.
their jerseys and they go watch their team on that day, and they talk about it, and they play fantasy and all. If we just had that level of activism from that same group and demographic of people, we'd be in a much better place. So I've just encouraged folks to, you know,
Right.
it's not
So
enough just to complain and to watch programs like this. You have to get involved in
get
the game and get
involved.
involved in the fight.
Absolutely. So again, your website is www.lookaheadamerica.org.
That's correct.
That's the website to go to. And do you have an email if someone wants to email you or your organization?
Sure. You can email me, matt@lookaheadamerica.org.
Yeah, and get involved, get on their newsletter because I see you do send out a newsletter letting people know what actions they can take.
Yeah, and even just right now, there's important elections happening this year in two important states. We're going to give you the addresses of 10 people to send a postcard to. What's easier than sending 10 postcards bragging about the beauty of where you live now, right?
Yep.
And these postcards are going to people who don't ordinarily vote in these off-year elections to remind them, hey, show up and vote. So the least thing I can ask of the folks in the audience is go to lookaheadamerica.org/postcard, get 10 addresses, send them a beautiful postcard saying, hey, go vote. I mean, does activism get any easier than that?
Yeah, and it's personalized,
Mhm.
handwritten. It could be
Nobody
beautiful.
throws it away. It always gets
Yeah.
read. Like political mail goes straight in the trash, but a personal handwritten postcard that gets read. So that's why we're taking advantage of that.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Matt, so much for coming on from Look Ahead America. And we'll make sure we get this out there and people look at his website, lookaheadamerica.org. Thank you again, Matt, for coming on.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. My name's Linda Sinkowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. And again, you're watching us on OBBM Network TV. Now we're going to go to our first state of the week, and that is Arizona. Arizona Capitol Times, this was from October 14th. Arizona Supreme Court to weigh in on election manual makeover. The state high court weighs whether EPM, which is the Election Procedural Manual, must follow Administrative Procedural Act. So Republicans argue that the EPM lacks exemption from full administrative process. The state warns compliance could complicate election administration statewide. Don't you love when they say that? It's going to complicate it if you do things legally. The Arizona Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, says the creation of the EPM is self-contained with a process already defined in state law. Mind you, that's why they're now in the Supreme Court. But anyway, the RNC, the Republican Party of Arizona, and Yavapai County Republican Party contend that there's no exemption from a more intense process that's described to agencies in the APA. The question started in 2020 when the Secretary of State didn't even have a 30-day public comment period, which is required by law. Fast forward through a number of legal challenges, it is now with the Arizona Supreme Court. So we'll keep an eye on that. Next state we're going to be talking about today is Iowa. Iowa, this is from the Gazette. This goes back to actually September 26th of 2025. 34 Iowa candidates will not be on the November ballot after city and school officers miss deadline. I saw the headline like, Really? Okay, so there's 34 board and city candidates in 7 counties will not be listed on the ballot in November election due to errors made by the filing officers, according to the Iowa Secretary of State, Paul Pate. Candidates will have to begin write-in campaigns after the school board secretaries and city clerks failed to submit candidate filing paperwork by the noon deadline on September 19th. It impacts 6 cities and 3 school districts. The Secretary of State says these errors were made despite, quote, extensive, unquote, training sessions on filing guidelines where resources even listed the deadlines. They were provided with the deadlines. They were trained on this stuff. And they missed it. Wow. So the affected counties are Calhoun County, the city of Jolie, Chickasaw County, New Hampshire Community School District, and Turkey Valley Community School District, Clinton County, the city of Andover, and the city of Welton, Davis County, city of Pulaski, Fayette County, Owen Community School District, Ida County, city of Galva, and Iowa County, the city of Williamsburg. That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if one of them missed it, but you've got 7 different counties where different officials. In the article itself, when I was reading it, one of them complained, well, we only missed the deadline by 15 minutes. Anyway. Okay, so now we're going to go on to Minnesota. Minnesota, the source is KSTP NBC5, and this is from October 14th. Minnesota House Fraud Committee discusses voter registration fraud. Now, the House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee are discussing the case of Ronnie Williams and Lorraine Lee Combs, the Nevada couple that filled out hundreds of fraudulent voter registration applications in 13 Minnesota counties during the 2021-2022 election cycle. The court documents in June said that Williams and Combs filled out forms with fake names, addresses, dates of birth, and social security numbers, and were paid by an unnamed foundation. I really think they should be naming that foundation. Quote, there doesn't seem to be a check when this group submitted fraudulent applications, noted Representative Kirsten Robbins. She's a Republican from Maple Grove and is also the committee chair. The motive for Williams and Combs was, of course, money. Minnesota's Secretary of State, Steve Simon, says, quote, this is also a case of the system working to detect those applications so they could be appropriately challenged and referred to law enforcement for prosecution and conviction, unquote. State lawmakers passed a law in 2023 banning the pay-for-play operation. It should be against the law everywhere. Everywhere. Wow. Okay, so now we're going to go on to New Hampshire. This source is actually from WV News, October 14th, 2025. Security versus access and the right to vote in New Hampshire. Now, Senate Bill 287, this bill requires applicants to present a copy of their photo identification with their application or present a notarized application before receiving an absentee ballot. Yay. Yay for New Hampshire. Yay for passing this law. This is absolutely the most sensible bill passed for utilizing an absentee ballot. Again, kudos to the sponsor of the bill and the state of New Hampshire. But as always, we have some of those that are not too happy. So I should point out that this article was complaining about having to prove that it was you that actually requested the absentee ballot. They bemoan the fact that they may get charged a fee. if they had to request a form and get notarized that would prevent so many people from being able to vote. You need to get something notarized? Go to your bank. The banks do it for nothing. So it's not going to cost you anything. I know in Connecticut that if you actually have someone notarize something, the most they can charge you is $5. But go to a bank. So I said, or making a copy of an ID. Oh, it's like a hardship. You can't make a copy of your ID. Really? I mean, the complaining about having to show photo ID when you have a state that is actually stepping forward to do the right thing, to do the American thing, to make sure only Americans vote and that nobody is stealing your vote, by the way. Don't think it's not being done. There are people who are pretending to be other people on the voter rolls. We've had it many times, even here in Middletown, Connecticut. Someone comes in and they go to vote and they're told, oh, somebody already voted for you. And it happens with the absentee ballots. Someone may just fill it out. So the best thing that we need to do is what New Hampshire has just done, and actually having to show that it's you with a photo ID. But of course, we're always going to have the ones that complain. Now we're going to go on to Ohio. This source is WKYC NBC3, and this is from October 15th. Ohio investigates. Cuyahoga County leads state with $28 million in unpaid political debt. Ohio has been fining political candidates that violate campaign finance laws since the 1970s. Now, understand, campaign finance laws have very restrictive things as far as who can donate, how much they can donate, where the money is coming through, and especially the reports that need to be filed, which are usually, the states usually have them on a quarterly basis. And the person in charge of that is the treasurer of the campaign. Again, there are very strict guidelines that need to be followed. And if they're not followed, the fine goes towards the campaign, and the candidate themselves is also responsible. Usually what they try to do is figure out where the issues are, and then they will have you refiled to make sure you're doing it properly. Well, a 5-month investigation by 3 News and its Ohio sister stations found that since 1987, there are now unpaid fines totaling $96 million. These are people who ran for office, by the way. Their analysis found that there were 243 repeat offenders. The Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, called out the problem in a press release back in May, saying the Ohio Elections Commission was a, quote, toothless agency. Oh, by the way, it's all set to be dismantled by January. So if people don't come into compliance, once fined, it's then transferred to the Ohio Attorney General's Collection Enforcement Division. This is where it stopped, and it just gets left in limbo. They don't follow through. They may send letters. Boy, do they need a new campaign finance system in the state of Ohio. I mean, that's unbelievable, with $96 million in fines. It goes on. Well, right now we're going to go to a quick break, and I'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. Thank you for watching us on OBBM Network TV. And oh, by the way, we're also on Rumble and YouTube. So now we're going to talk about elections and voting terms. This was a new segment we added a few weeks ago. This again is from the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission, and I checked it again on October 19th, 2025. The term of the week is certification of official election results. That is a written statement attesting that the election results are true and accurate accounting of all votes cast in a particular election. Too bad the state of Connecticut doesn't know what that means. Okay. Now we're going to go on to national information. The national information this week is from a Financial Content. It's from October 8th, 2025. Now, there were 10 states have amended their voter ID laws so far this year. Here's what each state currently requires. So there's 36 states that require voters, you got to watch those voters, to require voters. I'm sorry. 36 states require voter. I am having one heck of a time trying to say the word voters. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is definitely a blooper one. Okay. So 36 states require voters to present ID on election day. Of those, 24 require photo ID and 12 accept ID without a photo. The remaining 14 don't require any form of ID. Ugh, unbelievable. So West Virginia amended their voter ID laws to require a photo ID. Yay, West Virginia. You've got 3 states, Alabama, New Hampshire, and Kentucky. They require voters. Again, those voters. 3 states, Alabama, New Hampshire, and Kentucky require voters to provide a copy of their ID when requesting an absentee ballot. 2 states, Arkansas and North Carolina, require voters to provide a copy of their ID when they return their absentee ballot. Now, Georgia has HB 296, which required a driver's license for voting be in a physical format, means in your hand, and issued by the Georgia Department of Driver Services. So there's a number of different things with the states that are actually going in the correct direction for voter ID. See, I was able to say that correctly this time. I know we're just going to go to our trivia question. Trivia question of the week. Which president installed a bowling alley in the White House? We're going to go to a very quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. Now, our trivia question before we went to that quick break was, which president installed a bowling alley in the White House? It was Richard Nixon. And I got to tell you, I've actually seen where it is. It's on the lower level, outside of the cafeteria, and it's down, obviously, in the basement. So it was Richard Nixon that had the bowling alley. So the next thing we're going to talk about is our vote notes of the week. Portland's troubled proportional representation experiment. Unbelievable. Okay. So this is crazy. The proportional representation experiment. First of all, you're going to be able to find this on our website. Click on the vote notes and you can read the entire article. I mean, I know they're a little crazy on the West Coast, but this is just, I couldn't believe it. So this is a principle that a party's share of votes should match its share of legislative seats. What? I mean, there are so many issues with what their experiment is with that. So you definitely need to go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org, click on the vote notes, and read the article yourself. But almost nothing surprises me anymore. Honestly, I mean, between everything that is going on, and people think that because this is an off year, the only things that are going on are, the race in New Jersey and the race in Virginia. But there is so much that is still going on, and a lot of things that are going to have an impact for the 2026 midterm elections. Now, one of the things that I was sent some information on, and this was from Ralph Kushney. Remember, we had him on a number of shows ago. He's from Hawaii, and Hawaii had all those additional absentee ballots that just showed up, not from anyone in particular, that they could actually prove that the people had voted. So now, and I'm going to read this off of my cell phone, and we're going to have it up on the screen so you'll be able to see it easier. So the people of Hawaii are no longer counting their own votes. A company from the mainland is. Hawaii elections are now 100% mail in. We're told to trust the mail, but not the mail receipts. Now, what the mail receipts are is documentation proving that the absentee ballot actually went through the US postal system and doesn't just get plunked in without any verification of where they came from. So, Hawaii elections, again, are 100% mail in. Observers can watch the scanning of the ballots, but tabulation and reporting happens electronically outside public view, and there is no public verification. So what they want you to do is join them for their election commission meeting. That's on October 29th at 10 a.m. There's also a Zoom where you can hop on board and watch it. So we'll have that up on the screen so you'll be able to link into that. Offer support for Hawaii. Again, they're going in the wrong direction, especially after all the issues that they had. So the next thing that I wanted to let people know about happens to be Marley Hornick. She has a press conference on October 28th, and this is down in DC. It concerns the New York Citizens audit versus Letitia James and the New York State Board of Elections. So it's going to be down in Washington, D.C. That information we will also put up so you can see where that is. So those two people I do know. They have worked really hard with election integrity and everything that they're working on. It's nice to see that Marley has this big thing with the New York elections and Letitia James. I think that's excellent. So, again, our organization, Fight Voter Fraud, along with our program, Sinkowitz, we just want to be able to educate the public on election integrity. That's our goal. We want one vote for one legal voter. And what we mean by legal voter is being a U.S. citizen, 18 years old or older, and for having the people actually vote in the county or the city, and of course the state, where they actually live. So please, if you've moved, make sure you change your voter registration. Don't rely on your city clerk, town clerk, county clerk, or somebody else to do it. It's your responsibility to make sure you are registered legally where you're supposed to vote from. We want everybody to vote. We want you to vote. We want you to vote properly. And you know what? We only want you to vote once. Just once per election, not 2 or 3 times, or when your kids go away to school and their absentee ballot comes in. Parents, don't fill it out for them. There's probably a good chance that they have registered at the college where they are going to school. You do not want to jeopardize your students or your child's future in having them double vote when they didn't double vote themselves. I know people mean well. And we've also heard from people that, when grandma died and we end up getting her absentee ballot, we know which way she would have wanted to vote. Don't do that. Be responsible. Everyone has a voice. Our voice is our ballot. That's our voice. The people that I don't want to hear anything from are the people that say, well, it's not going to make any difference, so I don't even bother voting. You know what? I don't believe they have the I don't even know what word I'm looking for. I don't want to listen to them talk politics. Because if you're not going to vote, if you are not going to take advantage of something that our forefathers and thousands upon thousands of our military died to make sure we had a free country and the ability to vote, and you don't bother voting, you need to vote. Even if there's only one person on the ballot that you like, you need to go in and vote. And the other thing, since the elections are coming up, if you have free time, if you have the day off, volunteer at your polling locations, volunteer with the candidates. I believe it's 75 feet away from the entrance. Hold a sign. I know I'll be doing that, even if it's for a little bit of time. Even if there's only 20 or 30 voters that go past you holding a sign. Let people know who you support. Sometimes people don't know who to vote for. Sometimes you have people going to the polls that do not even recognize any of the names that are on there. You want to engage and let them know why you believe they should vote for a particular person. Now, Virginia, 45 days of early voting. If you didn't have your 45 days of early voting, there would have been a good chance that the one who's running for attorney general, who made the threats of killing one of his former opponents and having their children die in their mother's arms, may have taken himself off. Because again, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to get political, that's why I'm not saying what party it's from, but someone who threatens the lives of other people should not be running for any office, let alone the office of attorney general. And shame on those people who do not back that up. Nobody on that person's party is saying that he should step down or that it was awful. You have them doubling down on it. We got to stop this, people. We got to stop doing this type of thing and saying all these horrible things and threats. It's gotten out of hand. Think about what you need to teach your children. Do the right thing. Guess I had a little bit of an opinion and I didn't realize that I was even going to say that. So again, we want to thank everybody for watching Sinkowitz. My name is Linda Sinkowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. Go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org. If you have any ideas, send it through info@fightvoterfraud.org. We appreciate any comments people have, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.